Alright, hi folks. We are going to be changing out the alternator on an '09 GMC Sierra 1500 with the 5.3 liter flex fuel motor. This is the SLT. This is the higher option package vehicle. There are let me preface this and say, for this vehicle I have seen 4 different alternators for it. I have seen a 145 amp alternator that's a 2-wire, a 145 amp that's a 4-wire, a 160 amp that's a 2-wire, and a 160 amp that's a 4-wire. This one is supposed to have the 160 amp 2-wire. That is what we will be installing today. What is coming off is a 145 amp 2-wire. The big reason why we are changing the alternator out is that it couldn't handle the electrical load and it has internal damage. That's why, folks, you have to get the right alternator for your vehicle. Just because it fits, just because it plugs in, does not mean that it's the right alternator for your vehicle. Say this was a lower package vehicle, the 145 alternator would have worked. This is a higher package vehicle. This actually should have the camper package, but somebody's went and disconnected all the camper package stuff, and that is gone. So that's where I can see where somebody was led to kind of believe that the 145 alternator was supposed to work, but still, you're talking about this truck right here. It's an SLT. It's got the heated leather, it's got the heated back glass, it's got the dual climate control, the Bose sound system, okay, the flex fuel. Some people don't seem to realize, but that flex fuel system actually does take up some amperage. So, and keep that in mind, folks, that every component takes up a little bit of something. So, some of the tools that you're going to need to get started. If your alternator has decided to die on you, really charge your battery. Put it on your charger and charge it. Because when you put the new one on, you don't want to have the thing right out of the box just throwing amperage at it. Especially since with this vehicle you have to reset the codes, because there is an actual code in the computer that this thing will need to have erased. So, besides the scan tool, these are the tools that you need to actually replace the alternator. Now, I'll fire it up, it'll still have the code in it, but in some ways it should charge. I doubt it, because computers pretty much the alternator. So, first off, you're going to need an alternator. You're going to need a new alternator. I have decided, to heck with it, we're going OE. This is a 160 amp 2-wire alternator. Now, what do I mean by 2-wire alternator? Okay, I'm going to show you folks right now. What do I mean by a 2-wire alternator? Put the paperwork in there. The 2-wire alternator means a 2-wire connector. Let me see if I can get you in here. Come on. Okay. 2-wire connector. There would be a 4-wire connector on some of these alternators. This one takes a 2-wire. make sure that you get the correct alternator, because the 2-wire plug will not fit on the 4-wire plug. And from what I understand, it's not even adaptable to the 4-wire. So keep that in mind. Come on. So now bearings are good on this. This is a brand new one. This is not a remanufactured. That's another big thing about replacing an alternator, folks, is if you've got a reman alternator, do not be surprised if within a year you gotta replace it again. I've been noticing a lot of shoddily remanufactured alternators, and it doesn't matter where you go. I've just been seeing a lot of shoddily made alternators. Now let's get you in here, folks. I'm actually going to show you what you're probably why you're probably watching this video is your tensioner. Okay, fine. The tensioner detensions off of the actual, come on, show the bloody tensioner. Alright, it detensions right off the bolt. Now, if you put a wrench right in here, you push down, this will come towards the alternator. Okay? This is not reverse thread, so if you do go the other way, it will take this bolt out. So keep that in mind. So now, realistically, what do you need to take this thing apart? Well, if you've got one of these fancy tools that's got the 15 mil end on it, realistically you could possibly do this entire job with this and a pair of pliers. I'm going to be doing Speedy Gonzalez stuff to make the video shorter. I've already got the positive lead off this old alternator and the 2-wire connector disconnected. So let's actually get into the job. Alright, like I said, now also, folks, be aware that there is a lot of spring tension. This actually reminds me of a Ford tensioner more than a traditional GM. You know what? We gotta do that again. Come on. And realistically, folks, take your jewelry off. You know, you are working around electrical, so take your jewelry off. Now, I know somebody's going to say, oh, you should be be disconnecting the battery and all that. Yes, yes you should, but on these newer vehicles, you really need one of those memory saver tools if you're going to do it that way. Well, we're just going to leave it there, because now, as I said, these bolts are 15 mil, so I'm just going to blast them off. Okay. Get a small dead blow and kind of work this thing off. Okay. This is where a pair of channel locks or something will come in easy. Now, don't be all worried that you're going to break something, because there's tensioning pieces in the alternator bracket to allow for that 1 or 2 degrees of play. What you bloody thing? There. Now at this point, you'd flip over your alternator, you'd take off your nut and pull off your wire. Since this one's already been done, we can go and get the new alternator. Oh, another big thing about these remans, if you take just your belt off, and I don't know if you can hear it, but yeah, those bearings are shot. And what really shocks me is that this was remanufactured 1/7 of 2019. That's what the tag here says. So an alternator that barely lasts, what? This is September, what is this? September 18th of 2020, so didn't even last 2 years. That's sad. That is sad. Now I believe that this nut is 8. No. Let's go straight to 10 then. Maybe it's a 10. Probably a 10. Yes, 10. So if you're using sockets and wrenches, it's a 10. Come out of the boot. Now this one's actually smaller than the one that, case size wise, than the one we just took off, and that's why it slipped right on. Now don't worry, because when you put your alternator bolts back in, and as you tighten, it's going to take up that gap with these spacers. Let me see if I can get you in here, folks. These spacers, so don't worry. I would recommend that you put something on here, WD-40 or some kind of lubricant to get these to move that little bit, but I'm not going to. That's my personal preference. That's what I'm going to do on this one. If this was a little bit older, I really want to do it, but now, if you notice, folks, I did not tighten down the bolt, the nut on the back side of the alternator. And I did that so that I can come back later and tighten it. This is probably the proper time to do it right now. So I'm actually going to take the 1/4-inch drive, because realistically, folks, do not go all He-Man on this. So now we can put the connector back on. There. So, all we got to do is tighten up the bolts and put the belt back on. Alright, now we got the bolts tight. Make sure that your belt routing hasn't changed. If it has, make sure that you fix it. Tool right off, and voila. Now, hopefully you had left your battery on the charger this entire time. Depending on how long you've been driving the vehicle without alternator power, and what kind of battery charger you're using, depends on how long you really want to keep it on the charger. If you've been driving it, folks, for a while with even just a weak alternator, and you've got a 10 amp battery charger, I would recommend putting it on the charger for at least an hour. So, folks, that is my recommendation to you. I'm going to put the tools away. I'm actually going to pull the battery charger off, and we're going to start this thing up. Fire it up! Fire it up! So, you know, okay. Alrighty. Let's grab you. We're gonna go into the cabin. Okay. Now, like I said, this still is going to have the code in the computer, so don't be surprised if it doesn't work right away. Okay, there's the battery gauge. And voila, we are charging. Now you still will have to go into the computer. You will still have to delete the code. Because see, we're still got service battery charging system. Alright? For a full to confirm that you've got a new alternator that's good, go out with your multimeter and put it on the battery. If it's showing over 14 volts, then it's a good alternator. If it's showing under 14 volts, then it's a bad alternator. But now, since we're going to consider this a good alternator, start turning on the accessories. Okay. Now, turn them all on. Turn on your headlights. Turn on your four-ways. Turn on your interior lighting. If your battery is, if it's charging, then it's good. Okay? So, please, if I've missed anything, please put it down in the comments. I'll try and get to them as I can. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.